Get on my way, I need space to get the fake car. Get on my way, I need space, I'm about to take off. Get on my way, at a frequency.
Alright guys, Season 2, Episode 6. I'm here today with a familiar face.
How are you doing?
One part of Area Academy.
The better part, some may say.
The better part. No, the handsome one can't come on yet. He's too busy, you know. So
Yeah, my better half isn't here, but he will be.
he will be
He
shortly.
will be for sure.
Hopefully, we'll have to. When he comes to the Hair Awards.
Yeah.
Yes. So obviously, you guys know Owen. A lot of our viewers, listeners will know you. Obviously, probably the biggest name in sports entertainment. Yes, Eoin McCarthy, everybody. This is him. We finally got him on. Obviously, we don't normally like to pay our guests, but obviously Owen only takes money to come on podcasts and stuff. So yeah, that's a joke, by the way, just in case.
I sent the invoice.
I know, because everyone's
here we
gonna
are.
be like, I can't believe he had to pay to go on now.
But if you want to pay me to come on your podcast, by all means, I'm accepting offers.
We'll put a PayPal across the bottom.
Yeah, just click here.
Yeah.
Like just here. Yeah.
So we'll do that. Right, obviously, as our tradition in all of our podcasts, which I know you've just been sweating on, 5 favorite songs, mate.
5 favorite songs to kick it off. So this was a really difficult one for me actually, because I feel like, music has actually played such a big part in my life, as I'm sure it has in yours, and I'm sure it has in many of the listeners' lives as well. So it's really hard to pick those 5 songs, but I think I got a good little mix going. Like there's some new stuff, some old stuff.
I honestly have no idea what's coming. I have no idea what songs you're going to pick here.
Well, you've got one idea.
Well, yeah, I do, because
Yeah.
I listened to one.
Yeah, so the first one, and the reason why it's the first one is because it was the first rap song that I ever listened to and bought the CD of. It was the first CD that I ever had as a kid, and it was 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. So the song In the Club.
Class.
It's just a classic, isn't it?
It's a banger.
It's an absolute banger. You can put it on at any time, and it's just like, well, that's my first ever rap song. I remember buying it in golden discs as a kid, and then driving back to Fermoy from the big city of Cork, and my mom listening to me listening to 50 Cent.
Oh, that's super.
And she was just probably like, what the absolute
Yeah,
fuck? I didn't know what
yeah,
any of the lyrics meant.
It doesn't matter.
I was just banging them out there. I knew every word, still do. So that was song number 1. You can't do a top 5 favorite songs, if you're Eoin McCarthy and not mention Drake. So I picked the Drake song for the second one. Feel No Ways by Drake.
Yeah.
I think it's massively underrated song.
I was going to say it's a bit underrated.
I think it's one of, even Drake did an interview, and in his interview, they asked him what his top 5 favorite songs that he's done are, and Feel No Ways was one of them. He's like, yeah, it's underrated, which it massively is. So I picked that one. I picked Stuck in a Moment by U2.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Just because of the emotional element to it,
yeah,
like you can listen to that, and I mean, there's a couple of TV shows in Ireland that kind of show the highlights of every year, and that one just kind of hits, U2 being Irish, Stuck in a Moment. What a fucking track, man. Unbelievable. The next one was
Westlife.
No, Westlife could be up there too, though.
It's gotta be.
The next one was actually, it's called An Evening I Will Not Forget by Dermot Kennedy.
Never heard of it.
Very emotional, very emotional song. If I'm feeling a bit like down and sad, I'll put that one on.
You listen to that?
I'll put it on, yeah.
So is it a song that gets you sad and emotional?
It's just powerful,
Yeah.
He's got an Irish voice. He's quite a current artist at the moment, but his voice is very Irish, very powerful. Just a banger. And then lastly, The Weeknd, Reminder. Simply because of the memories attached to it. Me and my mate Matt used to listen to that song all the time.
Yeah, that's class.
When we first came to Australia, and I like it because I like giving people reminders.
Is there any song that you associate with hair?
Is there any song I associate with hair?
Like, do you know when you ever hear it, you think, "Oh, that reminds me of when I was cutting hair or doing this in the shop," or
Not really, no. There's certain albums that I can listen to that bring me back to
Yeah.
memories of when I was first cutting in the shop or when I first joined Area. Yeah, there's a couple of different ones. The Disclosure album was a big one that we used to play a lot. Danny and I used to have a bit of fun with that one. The Kendrick Lamar Damn album, when I first came to Australia, was huge. Loads,
Yeah.
but no specific song.
yeah, not one which goes like.
No.
I was trying to think. There was a song which you and Biff Do were playing when the Villa Boys. When you were
Yeah.
cutting their hair, and I can't remember it now.
Last by
Yeah,
Burna
that's
Boy.
right.
Yeah.
it.
I think I was gonna put that on, but it's too current. It's too new. It's too fresh.
Yeah, you're all about classics.
I don't know how it's gonna age.
Well, that's a very good point, actually.
All of the ones that I picked have aged really well for me. I think that one. I was gonna actually do that for this podcast. I was gonna pick just my top 5 current ones because it was such a last minute thing. I was just doing it before we started recording. But yeah, last would be in the top 5 current. I think it's at the top of my on repeat right now.
Yeah, it is a good song. It
pretty
is a
good.
very good song.
Yeah.
Biff Do played that so loud in my car, man. I still get headaches from it.
It was Happiness by Alexis
Oh
Jordan.
yeah, that was an absolute banger as well.
Happiness by Alexis Jordan was so close to
Was
getting
that on
put
the
in
way
there.
up to Brisbane?
Yeah, it was on the way to the game. I just put this song on, little story for you, for whoever's listening. I just put the song on in the car and I was like, guys, this is my guilty pleasure, this song. And it was Happiness by Alexis Jordan. So if you know the song, shout out to you. If you don't, get it on your playlist.
100% get it listened to. It was hilarious though, because I think obviously you were in charge of the music that trip and you were DJing, and I think you were like, do I give it a bit of a like, let's play this one and see the reaction kind of thing? And then we were both bouncing in the front, and I think Biff Do was a bit like, okay.
He was like, what's going on here?
And we were playing some absolute bangers as well.
Yeah, clearly it didn't land in Australia as well as it did in the UK or Ireland. So
no, good times. All right, we should probably talk about you then.
I guess, yeah. You lead the way.
I know. So let's talk about obviously people may have picked up you've got an accent.
Yeah.
Which is not Australian.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about back home, not about when you came over here, but I think one of the things, it's a very different upbringing in the UK to here, obviously. So yeah, tell us a bit about back home, your town which you're from, obviously, school you went to and stuff like that. Give us a bit of a background into young Eoin.
Yeah, cool. So I'm from a place called Fermoy in Cork, in the south of Ireland, and yeah, my hometown when I left, the population was about 10 to 15,000 people. I'm sure it's still quite similar. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's changed that much in 6 years. But yeah, a little insight into that. I grew up in, a very mixed kind of upbringing in terms of seeing both sides of class, I guess you could say. Typically my second name is McCarthy, so typically people in my hometown might see me and think, oh, money, because my granddad had a garage. Growing up, he was a big car dealer, car salesman, and he had a massive Opel garage, the biggest one in Ireland. And then my mom's a hairdresser, but her family are farmers. So like you had that real kind of working class farmer background family versus my granddad, who is a bit more in the kind of, in the baller category, I guess you could say, for his age and his time. But he came from nothing. He was self-made himself. He came from absolutely nothing. So he really worked to get to that point. But you know what it's like, where you're from as well. I'm sure it's the same. Anybody gets a little sniff of money, people think
100%.
People start running away with their own ideas of who you are and what you are. So I feel I kind of got put into a few different categories. growing up, when I reflect on my childhood now, which I have been doing a lot recently, it was, it's quite confusing. I found it quite a confusing time. Not at the time, I don't think I realized how confusing it was. But now that I reflect on it, it was confusing, and I still, to this day, even I'm doing the work on it, where I'm like, bloody hell, I gotta let go of a lot of these patterns.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that I created to kind of protect myself through that confusion. But yeah, I grew up mainly with my mom, so I lived with her for most of my childhood. You know, I had a really close relationship with my dad and my brothers as well. So my dad and my mom split up when I was really young.
Yep.
And then my dad remarried. I've got two brothers. One of them's just about to come to Australia, which is super fun. Looking forward to that.
You may see stuff on Instagram.
Yes, you may or you may not.
Yeah, no, it won't be reshared.
So yeah, but yeah, really, I mean, like I went to my mom did a really great job of raising me, and you know, she did her absolute best to make sure that I got all that I needed.
Yeah, class.
And I never kind of didn't have anything, you know, like I've always had everything that I needed or even wanted, you know. But yeah, then I went to secondary school, did the whole thing that like everyone does pretty much, you know, primary school, secondary school. Late in my secondary school years, I kind of got into cycling. I was into cycling since I was about 11, but I realized I wanted to pursue it when I was about to, I guess, finish school, them last couple of years prior to that. So I took it really seriously from there. I was always involved in the Irish national team, the setup there, Cycling Ireland. So, you know, I was part of an Olympic development program there for quite some time. So that was quite interesting. And then, you know, it dampened my effect on school though. Like I didn't really give a fuck about school, to be honest, when I was there, because I was like, well, I'm going to be a cyclist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And why do I care about this? Because I'm going to be cycling. Like it, you know, I wasn't thinking of anything else. And I eventually did. I got to that point where I did cycle, and I did it full time. Did it full time for about 4 years. And yeah, it just came to an end after a few accidents, a few, you know, months sitting around at home thinking about life and where it's going to go next. It all just kind of came to an end, and you know, I've got no regrets with that part of my life. It was great. That led me nicely into hair because my mom's a hairdresser. So that's a really, really quick version of it up to this point.
What made you get into cycling?
What made me get into cycling? My uncle was into it.
Yeah.
And all my cousins were into it. So at that time, it was just a way for me to kind of hang out with my friends and my cousins. And, you know, at that time in Fermoy, there was about maybe 20 of us, like, riding bikes, and we were about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And it was just really fun. We used to travel all around Ireland in a little van every weekend and go racing, and it was just fun.
Yeah. See, because my thing, obviously, side story, my cousin Edward, who was also a pro cyclist, obviously you guys had raced with each other and stuff like that as well, which is absolutely mental. And what a small world it is. But with the town where I'm from, Llanelli, like Edward is probably the only one who I'd seen cycled or take well, they've got clubs there, but somebody who took it seriously and went to kind of like that next level. So that's the only reason why I asked, because I think the first bike he ever had was off my old man. And it was a Peugeot, like shitty old bike, like it was horrific. But yeah, I think he just got into it like that. I never really got into road cycling until I came to Australia. It's huge over here.
Yeah, it's mad. It's becoming the new golf, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, it's becoming one of those sports, and I think, yeah, it's particularly at the time that I was doing it, it wasn't like it was super popular or anything.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why I liked it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You know, and I don't mean this in a bad way or anything, but I just never got down with the whole team sport thing. I tried it all. I played soccer. I played Gaelic football. Played I was hurling. I was doing it all. Rugby. Tried it all. Some of it I was actually okay with, when I was younger. I think as I got a little bit older, I was just maybe a bit too soft. And then, didn't have some good run-ins with different managers and different things like that. I think there's a lot of favoritism growing up in them kind of spaces. So I was just like, oh, fuck this. I'm getting out of this. Yeah, 100%.
Shocking.
So, yeah, I just kind of pursued the cycling, but what a sport to pursue as well. It's a pretty crazy sport. I'm sure you'll know a little bit from Ed. He'll probably have shared that with you, but it's a mad sport.
It's mental.
Yeah.
Like absolutely mental. I think it's not, well, obviously everybody knows Tour de France. Everyone, don't they? But again, they don't see the amount of like the work that goes in the back end, like what people do from like starting off in cycling, and the money is absolutely pathetic, which I'm sure was one of the reasons why you got out of it. Like I remember him telling me how much he was making and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my god, you're gonna have to get a job soon. Like you're gonna have to seriously. There you go, good times.
Yeah, and I could kind of see that. Like I could kind of foresee, and I was watching people above me in terms of age getting to stages in their career where they've had to just start again at like 28, 29, start life again. And I could just kind of see that playing out. And I was like, well, look, if I'm not going to be in the top percentage of cyclists in the world, then I'm just not interested.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not going to dedicate my life to something, put my life on the line, literally, day after day, race after race, just for what? Like,
yeah.
One of them accidents could be the last accident.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've seen some really bad ones, and some of my teammates. And it's just the other sacrifices as well, beyond that, like, the time that you spend away from home, the time that you spend away from your family, the time that, you're out on the road by yourself, doing all of the hard yards. But I think, the principles and the learnings that I've got from that have been huge. It's what stands to me now today in the hair industry. And I think it's probably where my point of difference is in terms of my work ethic and the ability to get up and just keep going day after day after day. Not that that's always a good thing, as I've learned recently.
Yeah.
But it's stood to me in so many different ways. So no regrets with it.
Yeah, there is it's very interesting, the whole cycling thing. Anyway, we'll go back to that. Speaking about your ma, always been a hairdresser?
Yeah, always been in hair. So yeah, as I said, she's a farmer.
Yeah.
But she doesn't really like animals or farm work.
Not good for farming then.
No, definitely not good for farming. Oh. So yeah, she's always been a hairdresser since she was old enough to do it. And she kind of grew up in Ireland, went through the kind of typical apprentice system there, which there is no system really. Yeah. She was at Peter Mark. Peter Mark, so she was there.
Mark,
and then she just went from there to having her own salon, and she's had her salon now for about 30 years, just a bit longer than I'm alive.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, the salon's older than me.
That is mental.
Yeah.
So literally before you were born, and had you kept everything going and still going now. Yeah,
so like I often say, like, I actually learned how to, like, my mom is fantastic at client relationships and building relationships with the clients. I think her ability to speak to people and network with people, when I go shopping with her back in my hometown, we'd go down to get like some milk and bread, for example. We'd be in the shop for like 2 hours. You'd be another person stop. And I guess I always just witnessed that very kind of social environment and social interaction. And it's something that, it's a skill that, like we were just talking about earlier. I don't know if Gen Z are really going to have that, because we got to witness that growing up, of them types of skills. And, I often say, I started learning about hair in the womb. And it's it's pretty literal when I say that,
Yeah.
because I was there in the womb while my mom was on the floor still
Yeah.
doing hair. There's all the science and all the research shows that you can actually hear your parents, and you know the sound of their voice and the tone of their voice. So I was probably there whilst all that was happening, and kind of absorbing it somehow. So I never thought I was going to be in the hair industry, but I guess, yeah, the world has a funny way of working.
I always talk about this with Matt Mondesi, and I always say, like, she made it quite clear to me never go into the hair industry. Like, from when I can remember, just going into the salon which she was doing education at, and she was like, don't do it, you'll hate it. Like, you'll just be dealing with, like, your hands on people's hair and they've got like dandruff or nits and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, actually, that sounds horrible. Was there any part of you, obviously, I know when you finished cycling and then went into hair, but was there any part before that where you were like, oh, actually, I think I really do want to get into hair? Or
Not really, no, until it was actually happening.
did your mum recommend that you went into it? Or
I guess there was an itch in me that probably wanted it more than she did. Like, she didn't push me towards it at all. I think I saw it as an easy way to make some money, and a skill that is not as, why not have that as a skill?
Yeah,
it's a good
exactly,
skill to
yeah.
have. I'm her only son, so I was like, well, I'm going to probably own this salon at some point in my life.
Yep.
Hopefully not anytime soon.
yeah,
But, at some point in my life, I'll own the salon, or it will be passed down to me, or whatever way that will work. And I thought, well, why not have a little bit of an understanding as to like how it all works? So I gave it a crack. It was a good way for me to socialize with some of like my kind of peers and schoolmates and friends, because I hadn't spent much time with them in the 4 years that I was away cycling in Europe. And yeah, it was just a really good way to kind of connect and socialize. And then after a while, I kind of started to get a hang of it, and I was like, hang on, I'm actually pretty I'm all right at this.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was to do with how I was interacting with the clients and how I was interacting with my friends and with those people. It wasn't necessarily the product of the haircut, because the haircuts weren't great.
Yeah.
Like, and you can go back and you can see all of that on my Instagram. If you go all the way back to the start when I first started hair,
Yeah.
you'll still find cycling photos of me on there,
Yeah.
from years back. But the haircuts weren't great. So what else was it? It was my relationship building. It was everything else. The fact that nobody in my hometown was doing that,
Yeah.
especially at that level. And back then too, I think Snapchat was more popular than Instagram back then, which is hilarious. Snapchat was probably the medium of choice back then. Nobody was promoting themselves like me. Nobody was branding or marketing themselves like me. So I had a lot of ideas that I kind of had from my cycling career. And I think that's just a skill that I've always had, is the ability to kind of problem solve and find ways to make things work. Like, even when I was cycling, I wasn't the most talented cyclist, but my point of difference was I could write a really good cover letter.
Yeah.
And I could put together my CV, and I had a website. I had all these other things that other cyclists didn't have. So I got the gigs.
Where did that branding come from? Was there something which you've seen and thought, oh fuck, I could just copy that for cycling? Or was it like was it somebody telling you, or you want to promote yourself? Because I find that really interesting. Like, I remember you telling me that about Snapchat and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I don't know. I've never, ever like thought about doing that, if that made sense, until it just went huge. And then it was just the norm to just be like, oh, well, you've got to have an Instagram page, or you've got to have Snapchat or something like that. So was there anything which like triggered that? Did anybody tell you like, oh, you want to start focusing on your brand? Because your brand is big.
Yeah.
Like what you said, it sums it up perfectly. Probably don't even, like, if I ask people like, oh, how many races is you on? People probably wouldn't know, but they know you're a professional cyclist. You know what I mean? Because your brand was professional cyclist. So
yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know where it really came from. I think it kind of started with my I love writing.
Yeah.
Like, I love kind of like blogging and sharing when I have the mental capacity to do so.
Yeah.
And the reason I love it is because I'm good at it. And I think, that really helped in school. One of the only topics in school I was actually any good at was English. So when I was cycling, I started documenting what I was up to on a blog. And that blog kind of turned into my website. So it started off as a blog.
Yeah, cool.
Where that then turned into a website. But where that actually came from, I don't particularly know. I always took a lot of inspiration from industries outside of the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, for example, even the same now.
I was literally just about to say that. I'm like, everything you guys are doing is not from the hair industry.
No, not really. Like that, but that's that's kind of like the blueprint that I've been operating off of for some time now. And I think, maybe in my cycling days, it was probably the same. I came across Gary Vee very early in his journey as well.
Yeah.
And this whole document versus create thing that he talks about, I was all over that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, great. Because when you're documenting, over time you're going to create.
Yeah, exactly.
Like naturally. If you're documenting 6 days a week.
Yeah.
52 weeks of the year. You're going to come up with like 5 or 6 absolute gold pieces of content that get your brand out there. Like, it's just one of them things. If you're documenting what you're doing, and I listen to some people like Stephen Bartlett all the time as well, and he shares this story all the time about when he was broke and when he had nothing, that he used to like almost visualize and pretend that like he did, or like that a camera crew were following him around.
Yeah.
And it might sound cringe to say it, but I kind of always had that in my head as well. I always knew that, like, okay, I have actually got something else. Like, there's something special that I have within me, that I can manifest this stuff. I can work towards things. I can reverse engineer things. But I'm going to live my life as if the cameras are on.
Yeah.
All the time. And this is something I'm becoming very, very hypercritical of myself, like to the point where like it's my self-awareness. Like, I thought I had levels of self-awareness in the past, but my self-awareness these days is like on another level completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason why I do things and the reasons why I have done things up to this point, that's kind of changed in my mind. The why has always been the same.
Yeah.
But my reasoning behind the why has just changed. And I think back then I didn't fully know what my why is. I was just kind of following the advice from what like the Gary V's were saying, what other people were saying. And that was my point of difference, because I knew that I didn't have the natural talent on the bike. I knew that like I couldn't outperform people in that way. So why would I not do something else? Do it in another way. And that's what's always got me to gigs. And
it's very interesting.
And just being a nice person along the way as well. And like, where I was going with that is there's no, I know. there's no real like
cut that.
And what I was going to say is like, there's no real different version of me that you're going to find. Like, you could listen to this podcast if it's the first time you're here and me have a conversation with someone and then we meet. It's not going to be a completely different person.
Yeah. I agree with that. It is, you are what you see. Because there's a lot of people, as we know, not in this industry, but in general, when you see them on social media and you think they're going to be an absolute twat, and they're completely different in person. So it's nice to see people. I did say this to Lee when he was here last. It was like, it's nice that the students, what they see on social media, literally when they meet you in person, they're like exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no like fakeness and stuff like that, which I think there's a lot of value to that as well. I know that's one thing the students respect massively about you guys. It's like what I've said to you before, even just replying back to messages and stuff like that. Like, we know there's a lot of people in this industry who it's literally just sent to just delete. So yeah, that is I would say that's definitely one of your plus points, mate, is you are who you are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, the whole replying to messages thing is an interesting one because, sometimes I still miss messages, or sometimes I'll open them and then I'll forget to respond. I think the more busy we've become and the busier that I've become over the years, that's been a little bit trickier
Absolutely.
to stay on top of. But yeah, I will most likely always get back to it at some point.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And that means a lot to me, like especially people who are starting off in the industry and they're coming through from the start. Sometimes like all I needed at the beginning was that bit of encouragement because I was very malleable at that stage.
Yeah.
And I was very, wouldn't say critical of myself, but I was very unsure. And just to get a few words of affirmation, or for somebody to kind of recognize that you're putting in the work, or
absolutely.
to send you a message or just comment on something, or even, to be honest, even people that were like, if somebody liked my stuff back then, like because I know I'm in that position now for these students and these young kids going
you
through.
Are massively.
So like if I can even just like something that they're doing or comment on it, that goes a long way. And like it doesn't take me anything. It's a couple of seconds out of my day.
Well, but you'll see a lot of people who would argue against you with that as well. And go, I haven't got enough time to do that. I haven't got enough time to like something. And I'm like, fuck it out. It literally took 3 seconds to just go, boom.
That's because they've got caught up in their own hype.
Yeah, no.
And that's a worrying place to be when you get caught up in your own hype.
Absolutely.
Because end of the day, we're all going to the same place.
Hopefully.
So
who knows? All right. Speaking of students, I want to chat about the network. Now, obviously, people know what the network is, but I want to know.
Do they?
Well, we'll play.
How would you describe it? How would you describe the network?
How would I describe it? So I would describe it to our students, or in general? In general, I would say it's an online platform which has, I want to use a fancy word here, but I'm not going to, has a ridiculous amount of resources on there. Now, it isn't your typical hair platform, I would say. And that was the one thing which we say to the students, it's not about the hair. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's a great added bonus that there are so many hair videos on there, but my thing is the looking after your body, the how to build a brand and stuff like that. I think that has so much value to our students, not just our students though, everyone in general. Because there's stuff I've picked up from that which I don't use anything to do with my hair or anything like that. I just use that in day-to-day life, like just something as little as the Wednesday wins. You know what I mean? I said that to Mum. I was like, that takes us 2 fucking minutes to do, like literally 2 minutes, and it's like every time I get a notification on a Wednesday morning, I know what it is, and I'm just like, oh yeah, perfect, boom. And now, and it's funny, I know I have this conversation with you a lot. When I first started doing it, I was like, what the fuck can I put down as a win? It's like, what the fuck do I do? And I was like, I used to take me ages, used to ponder over it and stuff like that. Now when you upload it, literally it'll take me 2 seconds and I'm just like, boom, I know what my win was. Again, going off topic with the network anyway, but I think that is that's the added stuff which I think people may not see behind that package. They might just see the network, which is online. There's hair videos, boom, fantastic. But there's so much more which I think our students get out of it for a start. I know I do personally. Like, yeah, I watch all the hair videos, which are fantastic, but that community which you've built, even on that Facebook page, like that's got a lot, like so much behind it. Like I love seeing that on a Wednesday.
It's great, isn't it?
Like, because there's people I've never even met before in my life. And they're just like commenting on it, going, oh, Gareth, that's amazing and stuff like that. Like, I know Richard commented on everybody's, and it's like, that is something which I think, like, geez, people in the industry, like if that was one of our hairdressing students, for example, they'd go, holy fuck, like he's just commented on my Wednesday win, you know what I mean? And I notice like you guys are always so active on it and stuff like that. So that community around it has so much positivity. Like it's, somebody may say something like their win might be a little bit negative or something like that, but it's like, then you've got 10 different people commenting underneath it going, oh, no problem. If you need anything, shout out, do this, do that. So yeah, I think I've gone on a tangent here, and I don't get any commission from this either. But no, I definitely think it's the actual foundations behind the hair on it is fantastic, but I think the bigger picture is what, like, we could go to anybody and get hair videos, you know what I mean? But I think the fact that those, all of that extra resources which are on there, plus the way that you actually teach is relatable to anyone in the industry. Because that was one of the things for us, obviously being a college, we needed videos which they would understand. Because we could go straight, you could do 40,000 sections in the hair, hence why they all picking this singular piece of hair, and the students would just go, boom, all the best, I'm done. You know what I mean? It was just like, too hard, I'm out. And that's one thing which we really have to balance as well, which has been great, because we literally go from the foundations of hair all the way through. Like they can literally stay on this journey for the rest of their hair career, which is one thing which I think is amazing, and that's huge for us, that we can go, cool, you want to get into the industry, here we go. Because again, people who are just starting off, they're not going to know who you guys are, you know what I mean? They may see you on Instagram and go, fucking hell, he's got 16,000 followers, all this and all that. But if I said to them, like, some of them didn't even know who Dyson are, which is crazy to think. But so it's definitely got that value to it as well. And then I think once they start getting into the industry, they're like, all right, fucking hell, yeah, this is nuts that I've got this resource at this level. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the network.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think I think a lot of what you said is spot on. I think, there's so much to be said for the foundational knowledge of hair behind what you see on something like Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you mentioned earlier about the Villa boys and the footballers and that kind of stuff. And, a lot of people will be interested as to like how something like that happens. But none of that happens without the foundations of hair cutting.
Yeah. Doesn't just go boom, there you go.
You can't do that without like having that base level of knowledge or that base level of foundational skill to even get you to the next point where you can be that confident in it that you can start putting yourself out there for those types of things. But yeah, look, I can't stress the importance of something like Wednesday Wins enough. I mean, look, it seems like it's a bit naff. A lot of people might look at it and think, well, whatever, doesn't really make any difference. But doing nothing is still doing something.
100%.
And that thing that I shared not that long ago about what's actually compounding for you, and like the fact that you said in the beginning I couldn't figure out what a win was. And that's the world that we're currently living in.
Yeah, exactly.
We're starved of even looking at what we do as a success, or our own wins as successes, because we're comparing it to everyone else's version of what they think or what the world should see as a big win.
Yeah.
Unless you're, winning big awards or making lots of money or whatever it may be, it just gets lost in the sauce a little bit. So I think Wednesday Wins is a really good way to just kind of bring everyone together. And there's no real agenda with Wednesday Wins. It's not like we're selling something.
No, exactly. It's just, do you know one thing which I spoke to Mum about this? Are You Okay Day just went past, right? And that's something which somebody makes such a big deal about. They put it all over their socials and stuff like that, and something which I am really passionate about. But nobody would ever say, oh, yes, what's the meaning behind that? You're just asking, are you okay? You know what I mean? I classify that as the Wednesday Win, because the amount of negativity, which I know people don't need to listen to, but it's especially in our industry, there's so much negativity. And it's like something as simple as just going like, oh yeah, I started the gym this week or something like that. Like that should be celebrated. That's amazing. So there's, just that little factor of it, which it's starting to get there from where it was when we first started talking compared to where it is now. It's only growing. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So yeah, it's great to see a lot more accountability, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, the community aspect of the network is something that's really important to us. I mean, as well as everything else, the community aspect of it's really important. And I think, we're in there and we're as active as we possibly can be.
Yeah, exactly.
I think yesterday's thread was nearly 80 comments or something on the network.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wins. But like, you know, to go back and just to loop around to that point about what you were saying about not really being able to search for a win at the start, but now it's like they just pop off the top of the head. It's like you're looking for them everywhere.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can see them everywhere because it's become a conscious thought every week.
Mm.
You're looking at your past week and thinking, oh, what's been a win from the last week? You know, it's just planting that positivity seed
Yeah,
and letting that grow. And now that just
Exactly.
becomes a bigger thing than anything else, because the same thing happens with the negativity seeds.
yeah,
You
exactly.
plant them, they're going to grow as well. So like, what way is it compounding for you? And you know, something as simple as just sharing that win every week, it just sets you up really nicely for the rest of the week. It just gives you that momentum, sometimes that encouragement that you might need to push through, and the accountability.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
and if it's, you know, everyone is in there showing love, it's not like, you know, nobody cares. I think, you know, there's probably people that might be on the fence, that might be in the group looking at it and thinking, oh, you know, I'd love to share something, but I don't really have a win. And we've been there,
mm.
you know, like we've been there where it's like, well, nothing is really a win,
Yeah,
but that's lies.
yeah, exactly.
There's always a win. There's
Yeah.
always something positive that you can pull from a situation.
Absolutely.
Even in the perceived negatives, there's always positive outcomes.
Mm.
You know, not like, I listened to a great podcast with Stephen and Simon Sinek, one of his recent ones, and it's on about like everything comes at a cost. You know, like even the negative things, they come at a cost, and they bring positive outcomes in the end a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they people who have the most traumatic stories, the worst things that have happened to them in the world, but they have turned them into the person that they are today.
Mm.
Because it forms their constitution and what they're all about as a human.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't say enough about the Wednesday wins, but the network, yeah. What do you want to know about the network?
I want to know why you did it.
Why do we do it?
Yeah, like what flicked in your head to go, I want to do this? Now, bearing in mind there are online platforms out there, so it's not as if you've gone, I'm going to be the first person to create this, because that's like, I know why, but yeah, go on. Why did you wake up one day and go, or has this been a pipe dream for a while? Or
look, it was always in the pipeline. It was always there, and it was always going to be done at some point. It came very prematurely because of COVID. You know, like we kind of COVID proofed our business with the network to a degree. Up to that point, we started the academy during the lockdown. We started to gain a little bit of traction, got shut down, sat around moping for a few days, then picked myself back up and said, all right, what are we going to do? Went back into the second lockdown, but in between the two lockdowns, we were kind of starting to put the foundations in place to start building out the network. Now, if we struck a couple of months earlier, we might have been onto something really, really golden. Like we'd already be much further ahead in our plans than where we are currently. Not to say that we're in a bad place or anything. We're definitely not. I'm enjoying every moment of it, and everything happens perfectly and for a reason. But I guess, you know, the reason why behind doing it is because we wanted to reach more people and make our education more affordable and accessible for people around the world. It wasn't necessarily done for any other reason, to be honest, other than to just spread the education further.
Yeah.
And to be able to document what we know in our prime years. Who knows what's going to happen next? You know, I'm in these 4-year cycles in my life where, you know, I cycled for 4 years full time. Yeah. I was on the shop floor for about 4 years full time. I was doing education for about 4 years full time. Now I'm in the next 4-year cycle. And it's like, well, I'm going to document absolutely everything that I have and put all my know-how and all my knowledge, everything that I have into this platform, so that I can share it with people and they can hopefully do the same things and go on to achieve similar things and their own goals. And then who knows what's next for me. I think the network is infinite. Like it's like the infinite game versus the finite game. Like, absolutely. You know, us putting that out there, it's there forever. you know, like our stuff is documented. I'll be able to show my kids the network.
Yeah, I know, that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It's mad to think, isn't it?
I know.
I'll be able to show my kids. I'll be able to say, "Oh, look at this. This is what I created back in 2021 or 2022."
I always thought that with Facebook memories.
Mm.
You know, when you see stuff from like, I've had Facebook now, shit, I don't even know, 18 years maybe?
It's long, like it's a long time.
Like some of the memories up on that, yeah, crazy. And then to think, like we were saying, you'll be able to show your kids that.
Yeah.
That was dad butchering a haircut.
And podcasts too, right? They'll be able to listen to
Yeah,
all these
exactly.
conversations. It's pretty mad to think, like, you know, our childhood, like very little was documented.
Yeah.
Like you can't go back and find much about like our childhood. Like I'm doing this thing at the moment where I'm might be a little bit left of field for the listeners. But what I'm doing is I'm going through like moments of my childhood and I'm just getting the screenshot of me as a child at different moments, and I have it as my wallpaper for a few months at a time. And it just kind of reconnects me to that version of myself.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because there's very little documented from that time, other than just what's in our heads. And sometimes that can even get skewed as well.
Yeah.
And it becomes something else, and you know, turns into something else. So I've got a few different photos that I've been swapping around, and I'm kind of moving up as I get older and older. And that was something that I got from a podcast too, which was really fun, you know, really cool. So
that's cool. I like that idea. I think a few people might do that after listening to this.
Yeah, so I've just gone back through, and like I started off as young as I could find, and then moved to the next stage, and to the next stage, and then to the next stage, and yeah.
It is that's a little bit scary thinking about that. How much of our youth is not documented? Like that's that's pretty scary. I think I've still got photos in like those. Remember those albums you used to get like Tesco's printed off when you'd get like your click film?
Mm-hmm.
I still got photos of like ski trips and stuff like that, and it always scares me because like I don't remember anything from those trips apart from the photos.
Yeah,
like my memory in the last 2 years probably is horrific, but I used to remember everything from my childhood, like certain stages. I know Stephen did a podcast with somebody who mentioned this. That like those first 2 years out of the womb is like everything which is installed to you there, you'll remember for the rest of your life. And I always thought that was a bit scary, innit?
Yeah, it's mad. It's a mad one to think about because I was actually going through the photos and I changed one last night. So I just changed the photo last night to a new memory.
Yeah.
And I was just reflecting on certain times in my life and the certain houses that I lived in. And there's one house in my lifetime that I lived in, and I can't remember anything from it. I can remember I remember I had a really bad fall there once, where I fell and like banged my head. And you see this bump that I have in my head here?
Yeah.
That's where I got that from.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I fell, like there was a ball was up against the curb. I went to like put my foot. I was 1 foot on the curb, like on the pavement. 1 foot on the ball, foot went from underneath me, boom, head on the floor, bust my whole face up. It was fucked.
That's your football skills coming out again.
Yeah. So I went. I just, the only memory I have of that house, I can remember the outside of it. I can remember the house. I know where it is. It's behind the house that I spent the rest of my childhood in up to this moment. But I can't remember what my room was like.
Yeah.
Can't remember. I'm like, it's actually frightening because I'm like, what the fuck happened there?
Yeah, what?
Was that like a protection moment where...
That's what I was going to say.
Because of that fall?
Yeah.
That's where my mind went last night.
The brain's going fucking
I think the brain just dump it, you know? And that's what happens during traumatic experiences, like for people, you know, like the body and the brain is so smart that it compartmentalizes things and chooses not to remember things that have happened.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It's fucking mad.
I know.
So like actually being able to connect with that, like that tripped me out a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
When I thought about that, because I was like, I can't really remember. But then because I'm doing this reflection, I can actually start having those conversations with my parents, you know?
Yeah.
Like next time I speak to my mom, I'm going to ask her like what was going on there.
Fuck happened there? Interesting. That's very interesting.
There's a lot more to me than just haircuts, you know.
I know. Well, that's the whole point of this podcast, man.
I'm
I don't
very,
really want to talk about hair because it's like that's why I like getting people on here, because even though you may be in the industry, but we try not to talk about that because I think people need to know the background
Yeah.
and need to know the actual person as to why everything happened, and everything happens for a reason, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll wrap up this one because I definitely think we're going to be doing a part 2 of this one. We'll probably do about 7 parts. We should just keep on doing one every 6 months and reflect on what's happened over the last 6 months, because it's crazy. Like, I still remember it was a week before Christmas. You guys were here, right? Last year.
Yeah.
When we actually put everything into place, and what's happened since then is absolutely bonkers. So yeah, there's stuff happening all the time, which is fantastic. But for our listeners who don't know where to find you,
you can find me everywhere. You can find I'm all over the place.
The man is everywhere.
You can find me, but you can't find me.
Oh, I like that. That's class. Well, your tags will be going across the video at the moment anyway, so tough luck.
Yeah. Look, and I mean, to kind of, even just before we get to that point about the network as well, like, you know, what it actually is and what Gareth was saying, you know, and this relationship that we have with the Barber Academy is a very special one for us, because it's really helping us in developing it for students who are starting from scratch too, because that's not really our field. We don't really play in that space. So to be able to have that opportunity, I'm super grateful for it. So thank you for that.
Oh, good, my friend.
But yeah, like that's going to be our kind of primary focus now from here moving forward. And, you know, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's an online education platform. You know, we share pretty much, like I said, everything that we have. You can go on there. We also have our own podcast called the Network Podcast. So we're starting that again. That's going to actually be, the next episode's going to be out on the 25th of September. Garrett's episode's actually the latest one. It's still there. The latest one. We couldn't top it, so we had to give it a break.
That's what happens.
We had to give it a break, you know.
That was in depth.
It was. So that was episode number 25, Garrett, and, you know, we were doing it every 2 weeks or so for the first year. So on the yearly anniversary episode, we wanted to just make sure that everything was kind of good. We wanted to pick out some of our favorite moments from the year. There was some fantastic podcasts that we did, so we picked 10 different moments that we enjoyed and made a podcast about them. So that should be out soon too. Thank you for having me today, Gareth. I'm sure there'll be another part to this podcast. I think, you know, this was very impromptu. We just sat on the couch, set up.
He was too busy eating Doritos, and I was like, we need to have a chat. Just smashing down Doritos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's the perfect prep for a podcast, isn't it?
Oh, I love it. Full of fuel.
Yeah.
Proper brain fuel, you know?
Energy. I'm looking at my Monster over there, and, you know, every time I see a Monster can now, all I can think about is Mark.
Same. Mark Hawthorne.
Sponsored athlete.
He should take the M and just turn it into like a...
That's actually not a bad idea.
MH, you know? M.
It's not a bad idea. He could well be the first barber sponsored by Monster.
Could.
Like, I've never seen anybody plug Monster as much as what Mark does.
No, he should have shares.
He should definitely have shares.
Yeah, he should.
That's amazing. Anyway.
But yeah, that's where you'll find us, guys. That's where you'll find me.
We'll chuck it down the bottom. Pete's good at all of this. He chucks it down the bottom when you're saying about your pages and stuff like that. So don't mess up, Pete. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. I know we've been trying to do this. Literally, we were supposed to do this last December when you were here. Remember, we were like, let's try and...
Yeah, that's right.
But it was just, we had so much going on with what we were trying to develop for the network and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good. I still feel this one was a little bit rushed as well, because we have things to do which are very exciting tonight as well, which may be out before this podcast, but who knows. But yeah, thank you so much, man. I can't wait to see where you guys are with the network, and I'm so glad that we've been on the journey and we'll continue on the journey. It's amazing, honestly. It's so cool to see from an outsider looking in, but then seeing all of our students go through that. It's it's amazing. I think it's going to be one thing which is definitely just going to benefit this industry so much, which, as we both know, it needs to happen. So thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Look forward to speaking to you all soon. Subscribe, like, comment, stay crispy.
Sign up for Garrett's OnlyFans.
I know, sign up for my OnlyFans. Ciao, ciao.
Give me my space, I'm in my pride. I was a prisoner, all of the mind. Now I'm a traveler leading the line. They wanna cut me, I'm bleeding divine. Home of the greed, land of the slaves.